Raven Harlow, or the Rogue Raven, is my character on Red Dead Online. And today, I'll be revealing her full backstory in terms of RP. But first, let me introduce you to her. At the start of the RP, Raven is a 20-year-old outlaw in the year 1898. She's been running from the law for quite some time, being a lone wolf with her only company being her horse, Thunderbird. Raven has an intense hatred for men. She defies both the law and the church, and is a confirmed atheist and lesbian, with a taste for alcohol and a love for horses. She's murdered many people, however, her heart isn't entirely cold. She displays a great love, loyalty, and a protective nature about those she loves and cares most about. These people she cares about is limited to her soulmate Athena and her small group of outlaw friends. But let's start at the beginning. Raven Harlow was born in the village of Coulter during the storm of the century. Her mother, Isabella, died during childbirth, and her father, Jasper, was an abusive alcoholic who became unstable after being in the war. For the first 5 years, Raven was protected from the abuse by her mother's midwife, Rose, who was like a grandmother figure to little Raven. However, once Rose died of a stroke, the abuse began, and Raven was at the mercy of a father who blamed her for the death of her mother. Raven endured the abuse until she turned 12. This is when the abuse turned sexual. Her father raped her in his bed on a late, cold night, and after he passed out drunk, Raven finally worked up the courage to run away. In her injured and weakened state, and despite the deep snow and harsh cold, Raven managed to make it to Lake Isabella, but little did she know, she was being hunted. On the ice, she was quickly attacked by a pack of hungry wolves. Being merely a child and an injured one, Raven could do nothing but be mauled by the beasts, and everything started to go black. Just as she was about to be devoured alive, a kind hunter on a hill managed to scare the wolves away. Though injured severely and her face scarred, the broken child was given a second chance at life. The hunter carried Raven on horseback down off the mountain, until they finally arrived at a doctor in the town of Valentine. Shortly afterwards, Raven was taken by train to the state of Lemoyne. It would be the first time she would be living away from the snowy mountains of Amberino. Soon, she arrived in Saint Denis, where she would be staying at the city's orphanage run by the church. Raven had trouble fitting in and getting along with the other orphans, but she had one thing to look forward to every year: summer. Every summer, for 6 weeks, the orphans were able to stay at McFarlane's ranch. It was here that Raven discovered her love for horses. The orphans learned how to ride and properly care for horses at the ranch, and Raven turned out to be naturally gifted. During her first visit at the ranch, when she was 13, Raven bonded with a heavily pregnant mare named Gemma, often visiting her and helping take care of her. On one of Raven's last nights during her first visit, Gemma foaled an all-black colt. Because Raven alerted Bonnie that Gemma was in labor, and she was present for the birth, Bonnie allowed Raven to name the colt. His name would go on to be Thunderbird. Bonnie McFarlane saw great talent in Raven, and became almost a bit of a mother figure to her during the visits. Raven also began to develop a close bond with Thunderbird, and the two gradually grew up together. Even though they were only able to see each other during the summer, their bond was unbreakable. By the time Raven was 16, all of her unresolved trauma from her past came flooding back. She decided to become an outlaw, with the goal of being strong enough to return home and take revenge on her father for all the hell he had put her through. And so, one night in the summer, riding on a fully grown Thunderbird, Raven ran away from McFarlane's ranch and the orphanage in general, and headed out west. The place she's heard be referred to as an outlaw's paradise, a land without law. However, Raven quickly learns this was nothing but a fairy tale, as the West is nothing but desert, disease, and death. She spends many nights sleeping in the desert and is often protected by Thunderbird against snakes and shady travelers. After spending 2 years in New Austin, living as a petty criminal, Raven stops at the town of Tumbleweed. It's here where she meets Madeline, and the girls instantly form a bond. This is also around the time Raven realizes she's attracted to the same sex, something that was both forbidden and illegal back then. The two plan to run away together, but they're abruptly stopped by the Tumbleweed sheriff, who shoots Madeline in the head without warning. Devastated, Raven takes out her rage and shoots up the entire town, setting it ablaze before riding off into the night. And thus, the Rogue Raven was born. 6 months later, Raven is wanted all over the state, but she's approached by Pinkertons who offer her a deal. If she puts down all the sick people in the town of Armadillo, which has been hit by yet another plague, they'll stop tailing her and allow her to flee the state without any bounty hunters or lawmen behind her. It's a shady job they want done off the books, and Raven agrees, and soon she heads to the town of Armadillo.
Oh, please, put the gun down.
Raven kills many innocent people during this massacre, but during it, she encounters a little girl in the upstairs of the saloon. Raven is unable to bring herself to kill a child, and she abandons the job. This only increases her wanted level, and so she's forced to flee New Austin as fast as she can before the Pinkertons show up. Now a talented killer, Raven decides to return to her hometown in Coulter and finally take revenge on her father. But upon arriving, she learns that her father had already died years ago in a grizzly bear attack. Between losing her first love, Madeline, the sins she committed in Armadillo, and now finding out that she was too late to take revenge, the whole reason for her becoming an outlaw, it all becomes too much for Raven. She rides until she finds herself at the top of Donner Falls in Wapiti and contemplates suicide. Ultimately, she realizes if she died, her horse, who stuck by her through everything, would be left alone, and so she walks away from the waterfall. Immediately after, Raven meets Rainsfall, the chief, and he offers her a place to stay for the night. He goes on to offer Raven some guidance, reveals her spirit animal is the wolf, the very animal that scarred her, and tells her it's not too late to start her life over. Raven half-heartedly takes his advice, and spends the next 2 years traveling between New Hanover and West Elizabeth, robbing stagecoaches and homesteads in order to survive, rather than killing needlessly. Now at 20 years old, Raven arrives in the town of Blackwater for yet another robbery, and it's here where she meets her soulmate, Athena Howard. While there is much more to Raven's character, I wanted to treat this video purely as her backstory and basic gist of her character, as I plan to eventually release episode RP videos showing the continuation of her story. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more Red Dead content, and I'll see you all next time.